So when did you decide, right, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to start making video essays on this. So tell me a bit about how your love for the Godfather trilogy started. How did you get into it? Awesome. So is it something you do by yourself, or do you have a team? Do you have guys who work with you, or is it just are you just a one man army? If you had to pick between the first two, which one would it be? Let's go on then to the third one. What's your opinion on Godfather Part 3? Did you ever hear
Yeah.
about the plans for the Godfather Part 4 too? But imagine in your head, the Godfather Part 2 is exactly the same as it was now, except there's no such character as Frank Pentangeli, and instead it's Peter Clemenza. And everything we see about Pentangeli happens to Clemenza. He slits his wrist in the end. That scene between him and Tom Hagen in prison, the court proceedings, the hearing, all of that kind of stuff. Would you prefer the film as it is now, or would you prefer it with Clemenza? So where do your ideas then come from when you're making a video? Is it just you're watching the film and something pops in your head? But let's say Fredo did what he did. What decision do you think Vito would have made? Oh my God. So speaking of favorite scenes, what would be yours in the entire trilogy? What's the one standout scene? So apart from The Godfather, then, what are your favorite crime films? What are the ones that you think are right up there with The Godfather, if any? Do you think the genre is finished? Because that's the vibe that many people get. That's you. But obviously, the voice in your videos is not your voice, clearly. So is there a particular reason for that? Did you use a text to speech software? Is it? So ready to rumble?
Let's go. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so obviously, I've come across your channel because we make similar videos. You make videos on The Godfather. I make videos on The Godfather. So tell me a bit about how your love for The Godfather trilogy started. How did you get into it?
Well, the first time I watched it was like years ago, and I didn't really get it a lot. I knew it was a good movie, but it was like kind of old, and like the lighting was all dark and stuff. And then, it was just a movie that I watched. Then a couple of years later, I came across, there was like a documentary that Francis Coppola was in, and he started talking about like the themes behind The Godfather.
Right.
So things like capitalism and like, his rise to power. So that intrigued me. So when I rewatched it, it was like I was watching it like for the first time, and I was like blown away because it had everything, like great acting, all of that. So yeah.
Was that just the first one then? Or was that all three of them, or just the first two?
It was the first two, yeah. The first time I watched part 3, I just got bored and I left it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just the first part, yeah, 1 and 2.
So have you heard about Coppola's the recent news about the 4K restoration? Are you interested in that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Even if it's like in theaters, I would actually go and watch that. But I don't think it's going to be here where I live. But yeah, it's actually good. Like, I'm looking forward to see like how it would look 4K and all that.
Yeah, the trailer looks good. I'm hoping they just don't mess it up. Like, sometimes they mess around with the color and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because especially with the darkness, because the Godfather is a dark movie. It's supposed to be dark. They did that intentionally while they were making it. So I hope they don't start, because I watched the trailer and it's like everything kind of looks very bright, and I'm hoping they don't mess it up. But the thing that I'm kind of disappointed with is that because there's loads of bonus content apparently going to be in the 4K restoration with the DVDs and all that, but the deleted scenes are what I wanted. Have you explored the deleted scenes of The Godfather? Because some of them are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, to be honest, The Godfather, no exaggeration, there shouldn't have been any deleted scenes. Like from the they made a novel they called it the novel for television, which is like they put them all in chronological order. So like you see the rise of Vito, then you meet Vito when he's with Bonacera and all that. And the deleted scenes are like there's one where he meets Hyman Roth. There's the one that Sonny walks back to, like after he gets the news of Vito being shot and all that. It's like, yeah, I hope they don't like they actually include those, and if they could like add even more.
Yeah, because I still can't believe that somewhere along the line, with the constant anniversaries of the film, they don't just release a kind of full version, or because like you said, the made-for-TV version or The Godfather, the novel for television, whatever it was called, just release a full version of that with all the deleted scenes, restore them, because that would have been amazing, I think. Do you have any
Yeah.
deleted scenes that in your head that you think this one was just amazing? I can't believe they cut it out. For me, it's the I actually made a video on this. It's the part where Sonny, after his father gets assassinated, he goes and tells his mother about the assassination, and then he goes into his father's room and phones up Luca Brasi, which just kind of rings through, and he phones up Tessio, asks him he needs some men, which I thought was a really great scene. There's a lot of subtext in that scene, a lot of nuance. Do you have any in particular?
Yeah, that one definitely sticks out. There's so many because now I just watched like the extended one, so they all like it's to me that's the whole movie. I don't watch like the original one that much anymore. Yeah,
Right.
just probably the scenes from like when young Vito, the young Vito scenes.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I think that. Yeah, I can't think of any at the moment.
No worries. So yeah, so tell me then. So you know the YouTube channel. How did that come into play then? So obviously you've clearly got a great love for the Godfather films. You've got a lot of knowledge about them. So when did you decide? Right, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to start making video essays on this.
Yeah, so I've been trying. I've been like during like my time at like university. I just wanted to do something like kind of fun online and stuff. I always had an interest in like making content and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't have like the skill set to actually do it properly. So I've tried different like styles of channels just for fun and that. But
Mm.
then I came across like the whole video essay type scene. So like, I found all these channels that make video essays about movies and stuff, and I found that like really intriguing.
Cool.
So so yeah, I said okay, I'll try to do that. Where should I start? Well, The Godfather has a lot of lessons, and I thought I should go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. So is it something you do by yourself, or do you have a team? Do you have guys who work with you, or is it just are you just a one man army?
No, it's just me. Yeah. Like I had to learn like everything from scratch, which is all right. But
Uh,
like, yeah,
yeah, it's good, isn't it? In terms of it does give you a lot of skills because there's a lot more involved than someone might think with a YouTube channel.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so in terms of the films, then I mean, it's a question that loads of Godfather fans get asked and ask each other. If you had to pick between the first two, which one would it be?
See, for me, it depends on like it changes like consistently. So like one
Right.
time when I watched like both of them, I would like that at that time I would like part one more, but then I would watch the part two later on, and then I would like that one more. So, but I think as a movie as a whole, the first one is like perfect.
Yeah.
Which
So
one would you choose? Yeah,
I mean, similar to what you said, it kind of changes, doesn't it? But like you said, the
yeah,
first one is such a complete movie. It works
hmm
from beginning to end. All the characters, the structure, the pacing, everything is just perfect. The second one is a little bit more difficult to get into because there's so much uncertainty in like the first hour. Like you don't really know what it's about. You don't know who the assassins are. Michael
yeah,
knows things that he hasn't yet told the audience, and it's all a bit,
mm,
But then once the film really gets going, it just becomes amazing. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's stronger than the first. I don't know. But the thing is, it changes day by day. If I watch the first one now, I'll say the first one's better. If I watch the second one now, I'll say the second one's better. So let's go on then to the third one. What's your opinion on Godfather Part 3?
um. Well, I rewatched it like quite recently, like last year probably, and it wasn't that bad. Like it was my first time watching it from start to finish, and it wasn't horrible, but it had like a lot of problem. It had the potential. It had the like it could have been amazing, but they just didn't like follow through with it.
All right. How would you
But
improve it then? And what would you say its main problems were?
I mean, to be honest, there's like a lot, but the main thing, if they just got this one thing right, would have been way better. It's I don't want to just blame it on Al Pacino, but he wasn't Michael Corleone. Like
Mm.
he was just it was I don't know, it didn't seem like I was watching the same character from like part two who's like calm and like calculated and all that. This guy was just like it was different. But you can't blame him. It's like I don't know how long after the original was.
Yeah, a common complaint is that he essentially just plays himself. Because in the
Exactly, yeah.
90s, he had that kind of thing where he was screaming and shouting and
Yeah.
very exaggerated performances. And he couldn't quite capture that kind of quiet, silent menace from the Godfather Part 2, when he's playing with his eyes and all of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But I mean, like you said, you can't really blame him because that's kind of how the character is played in the third film. That's probably how it was written in the script for him. There's not much you can do about that. Did you ever hear
Yeah.
about the plans for The Godfather Part 4? That there was some serious
Um
concrete plans from Mario Puzo and Francis Coppola for making a fourth one. They genuinely wanted to make it, but Puzo
Oh
died,
wow.
and after that,
Oh,
Coppola lost interest because he said that it was so much of it came from Puzo's head that he didn't want to continue without him. But have you heard about it?
I've heard that they had like a script for it based on a novel or something like that. But yeah, I didn't know that they actually were planning to actually go through with it.
Yeah, so actually, it's interesting that Coppola was actually so far in development. So they had a script. I don't think it was a finished script, but Puzo had written a script, and essentially it was going to mimic The Godfather Part Two. So they'd be telling two stories, one present day and one set in the past. The set present day one would be following Andy Garcia, who was obviously taking over the family, and it'll basically show him kind of running the family into the ground, him getting involved in drugs, gang wars, all that kind of stuff. And it would end with him dying in a flurry of bullets. The past storyline, the flashbacks would be on Andy Garcia's dad, Sonny. So it'd show how he kind of rose in the ranks and was taken under his father's wing and became a member of the Corleone family. That template was taken and written into a book by Ed Falco called The Family Corleone. This novel, which is quite good. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a prequel novel. It's worth checking out. Um, so yeah, that was the story. And apparently, in terms of casting, Eddie Murphy was supposed to play a bad guy. I mean that to me is just so bizarre. I don't understand that at all. But he was supposed to kind of play like a Harlem gang leader who would go up against Andy
Uh,
Garcia. Leonardo DiCaprio was supposed to play Sonny, which again, I just can't see him in the role of James Caan. He just doesn't have that macho masculine intensity. I don't know what you think, but I just can't see it. Especially him with red curly hair, that would just be so weird. This is an interesting one. Um, Robert De Niro was apparently supposed to play Vito Corleone again. Obviously, this time he's basically in between Marlon Brando's Corleone and the young Vito he played because
his
he's
original.
obviously in between then in age, and they would have kind of done him with makeup and everything. Al Pacino would have had one scene in the film, and it's literally the same scene from the end of The Godfather Part Three. So you know that part where Pacino's sitting on the chair and then he slumps over and he falls down, he dies.
Yeah, yeah,
What they
yeah.
were going to do was that scene would be in The Godfather Part Four, and it would be Andy Garcia coming to him, asking him for advice, and then Andy Garcia walks away, and then the scene ends, and we obviously know from the third film that he's going to die now, and that's the only time Al Pacino would have been in the film. So yeah, that's what it
Mm.
would have been about, mimicking The Godfather Part Two, two concurrent stories. Andy Garcia, um, Sonny, basically us following him with the rise of the Corleone family, and they'd incorporate characters like Luca Brasi and Vito Corleone showing their rise to power. Meanwhile, the fall of the family with Andy Garcia's Vincent Corleone. So, what do you think of that? What do you think of that as an idea?
I mean, as an idea, it's gonna be like I'm sure Francis could make it like amazing, but the thing is, it's never gonna be as good as the first two. Like it's
Mm,
gonna be a Godfather movie. It's gonna be like maybe better than the third, and it had
yeah,
like yeah, it's probably gonna be very entertaining and like intriguing and all that. But it's like if they're gonna make it, it can't be competing with the first two. They have to try and make its own thing. I think.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those where when I think about it, I think it sounds better than just on paper. It sounds better than the third film. It's kind of more veering into, mob territory, which is what people liked.
Yeah.
Because obviously the third film was, with the, the Catholic Church, and it was kind of corruption in the legitimate world, which is interesting, but a lot of people didn't really find that as interesting because that's not what you come to a Godfather film for. So I think this kind
Yeah.
of, I mean, it could have been interesting. So you've made a fair few video essays. You've explored certain characters. Who would you say is your favorite character aside from Don Michael and Don Vito? Which is the character that you think is most intriguing that you can talk about so much about? Who has the most interesting backstory and just something that someone that you can talk all day about?
Um. Well, of course, there's quite a few, but maybe the first one's like probably Tom Hagen.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not his origin story, but like he's the one who's like witnessed everything with Vito and all that. He knows all his secrets. Like in the
Yeah.
novel, they say that he knows where all the money's held, what assets they hold, and yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Because in the book, in the first book, Puzo's book, he's almost the main character because it's him. It's usually we're inside his head, what he's thinking about certain situations. He's kind of narrating what Don Vito Corleone is doing. So it's interesting that he's so integral to the book, but in the movie, he's just one of the many side characters. I mean, some of my favorites are guys like Luca Brasi. I don't know what you think about him, but I don't know why he's just someone I think was really captivating. He's in the film for so little time, doesn't actually do anything except gets killed, but he looks so menacing. I always call him the
yeah,
Boba Fett of the
yeah,
Godfather franchise because it's the same situation. They look cool, but ultimately they don't actually do anything. But they've got this famous reputation, and the family Corleone, the novel, which is based on Puzo's script for the Part Four movie, is actually quite good, and it expands on the Luca Brasi character quite a lot. He's one of the main characters in this, so I mean, it's worth checking out if you're interested in that character. Sonny as well is another great one. He's
yeah.
expanded
Sonny
on
definitely.
in
Yeah,
he's expanded on in Family Corleone a lot, and obviously he's much more uh he's got a lot more depth in the original Puzo book than in the movie. Because
yeah,
in the movie, he's basically a hothead, isn't he? You know,
yeah,
Michael is the intelligent one, Fredo is the weak one, and Sonny is the aggressive one. And it's kind of like you put all those guys together, and then you get Vito, I guess. That's one way of looking at it. But when you read the Godfather book, Sonny, you kind of think to yourself, well, he was kind of hard done by the movie. And James Caan, interestingly, actually agrees with this. He said that there were so many scenes that he filmed that add depth to his character that were just left on the cutting room floor. I mean, the most obvious example is the one that we just talked about with him telling the mum about Vito shooting and then going into his father's office. And there's one
yeah,
really good shot I love where he looks at his father's chair and
yeah.
you think he's going to sit in it, but he pulls up a side chair instead of sitting
Mm,
in his father's throne, which is such a great little touch. But yeah, he's one that you could explore a lot further, and obviously a fourth film was going to do that. But one thing that I kind of think is a bit with the Godfather Part Four, that idea is that the focus of the Godfather film is always um, Don Vito and his son Michael. It's like it's them two. You know, when you think of the Godfather, it's Michael Corleone and Vito Corleone. The fourth film is kind of veering off now into telling us about Vincent and Sonny, like that kind of
yeah,
ancestral line, which is kind of like, it's moving away from Michael Corleone, who is pretty much the central character of the trilogy. So I mean, yeah, there's interesting things here and there. So do you by any chance, do you have a because obviously you've made so many videos on the Godfather. I've made so many ones as well. Do you have like a favorite theory, something that isn't canon, but it's canon in your head? Like you like this idea. Like I'll tell you one that I have, for example. So in the Godfather Part Two, when the assassination attempt is done on Michael, and Kay asks, who opened the blinds or who opened the drapes, and he looks there, and then obviously the shooters start shooting, and there's chaos after that. They never actually tell us who opened the drapes, and I made a video on this. I think it's called Secret Traitor Revealed in The Godfather Part 2, something like that, where I basically argue that Rocco Lampone was the one who either opened the drapes or by his kind of because he was in charge of security, it was his failing that led to the assassins being able to do the shooting, which is why he is punished by being sent on that essentially suicide mission to kill Hyman Roth, because he does die. You think why would somebody as high up as Rocco Lampone be sent on a mission like that? You just send a random goon. But there's many clues in there that kind of make that theory work. So do you have any
mm.
of your own that you think, what, this isn't canon? I know it's not canon, but I like this idea and I wish that it actually existed.
I can't really think of any good ones because they're all like explained later on in like the other novels or like stuff like that. I think the Fredo one, the curtain one, there's like a lot of interpretations of like was it him? He went inside and opened it. That's why he said, "I didn't know it was going to be a hit." Did he send someone? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Fredo is probably the biggest. He's the one that probably everybody kind of jumps to, as in it's the most obvious suspect. But I always like the kind of Rocco thing, like as a kind of alternative thing, almost as if this is a kind of hidden subplot in the film, with him being sent as punishment to kill Hyman Roth. None of this is actually mentioned by any dialogue. A bit like the father son theme between Michael and Vito, how they don't see eye to eye in the first film. They have different
yeah.
philosophies on life, but none of that is actually ever mentioned. But we clearly get that from the film. But that's just how amazing the movie is. So
I actually thought of one. Sorry. Yeah.
is it? Yeah,
Um,
go on then.
do you know the scene where what's his name? Pentangeli's in the bar. He meets with the Rosado brothers, and then the cop walks in and all that.
Yeah.
I made a video where that it was all planned. Like they planned for the cop to. I can't remember exactly what I said, but the cop. What's it called? They planned for the cop to come inside just to make Frank think that Michael had sent them, because when they put the what's it called, the rope around, then they tried to strangle him. They say Michael Corleone says hello,
Mm.
and then I made a video about it. I can't remember exactly what I said, but yeah, they planned for the cop to come. Hyman Roth planned for the cop to come inside because he just wanted to get Frank to flip on Michael, something like that. Yeah,
That's a good theory. That actually makes a lot of sense because that line confuses so many people. I was actually going to make a video on that as well, addressing that, because if you're going to kill Frank Pentangeli, why say Michael Corleone says hello? Is it just to give him one last thought that his friend Michael betrayed him before he dies? But it doesn't really make any sense to say that.
yeah,
But like you say, if the whole thing, including the cop, was a setup, then it will click. So it finally makes sense that they want him to flip on Michael, but not to rain on your parade with this theory, but there is actually well, basically, I can't remember what his name is, but the actor who said that, Michael Corleone says hello. He's been in a few films. He was in Once Upon a Time in America as well. I saw an interview where he said he basically ad-libbed the line. So it wasn't in the script. So he was strangling the
oh
guy and he
yeah,
just said Michael Corleone says hello. And Coppola kept it in the film because he thought, I don't know why he kept it in the film, but maybe it sounded cool or whatever. So it was that's pretty much it really. It was just the actor ad-libbed it and they left it in the film. So that's probably why there's so much confusion. But maybe it was a case of the filmmakers thought that maybe we can leave this in, and there's the kind of insinuation that it was a setup, and
yeah,
your theory ends up being actually canon, and it is a good theory. It makes a lot of sense, and it adds a lot of depth to that scene, and Frank Pentangeli as a character, because then it's all kind of sad, really. Like his story is quite sad because he's supposed to be, an OG of the Corleone family, and he doesn't kind of outright betray the Corleones. It's kind of like he thought he was being betrayed. Did
yeah,
you hear that that character was supposed to originally be Clemenza?
yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the actor dropped out, and they created a new character.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that theory about. I heard the guy say he just added it in, but yeah,
Mm.
that's like a theory that. But yeah, Clemenza, yeah, that was a bit weird. It was like he should have been in the movie. Like even if they had Pentangeli as well, or like at least show us the death of Clemenza, so like we know a bit more. But then the movie, like they cut it out because like it would have been like way too long, probably something like that. But yeah,
Yeah, because
Clemenza is one of my favorite
yeah,
characters.
I love Clemenza, but I mean, I did a whole video, and there's a whole story behind it that him and the studio fell out, and it wasn't supposedly over money or anything like that. It was the direction of the character. So Richard Castellano, who plays Clemenza, he didn't like. First of all, he wanted his dialogue rewritten. He wanted to rewrite the dialogue, and secondly, he didn't like the idea of Clemenza flipping. He said that would never happen. Clemenza would never do that. So what would you actually prefer then? Because I've spoken a lot about this in one of my videos. I think it was why was Clemenza not in The Godfather Part Two? But imagine in your head, The Godfather Part Two is exactly the same as it was now, except there's no such character as Frank Pentangeli, and instead it's Peter Clemenza. And everything we see about Pentangeli happens to Clemenza. He slits his wrist in the end. That scene between him and Tom Hagen in prison, the court proceedings, the hearing, all of that kind of stuff. Would you prefer the film as it is now, or would you prefer it with Clemenza?
Um, I think I would prefer it like with it now, because yeah,
So even though Clemenza is one of your favorite characters.
yeah, because I would like having the image of him like being an old school like proper like gangster like Vito and all that. Um, because he's like the because Tessio ends up like betraying Michael, and
There you
Clemenza's
go.
like the only one left that's actually loyal.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the reason I side. It was like, okay, Vito has two capo regimes. Tessio's already betrayed him, and how is it that Clemenza goes and does the same thing, and it's nice knowing, thinking in your head that he died a loyal man, loyal to the Corleones.
Yeah,
Whilst at the same time it would be cool seeing him in the film because he's such an amazing character. One of my
yeah,
favorites, one of your favorites, and it would have been really sad hearing him say that line. I don't know if you remember, but Pentangeli says something like, "We were like the Roman Empire,"
yeah.
and
That's
they
yeah,
reminisce about that. But that doesn't really have as much weight because we didn't know Pentangeli. He was never in the first film. We've not seen him as much. We just kind of know that he betrayed Michael. But if
yeah. That's the
if it was
thing.
Clemenza who said that line, we'd be reminiscing. We'd have all the nostalgia from the first film, and then the sad image of seeing him with his slits, his wrists slit open. But like you say, what we got instead was Clemenza dying a loyal man, a proper old school mafioso gangster, and we got a new great character, uh,
Yeah.
Pentangeli. So it all works out in the end.
Yeah, they could have fixed that because, as you said, yeah, it doesn't have that much weight when Pentangeli flips and he says the Roman Empire and all that.
Mm.
They could have fixed it. There's one scene that I think it's deleted, but Vito meets Hyman Roth, like the young Clemenza introduces him to him. So they could have just added like Pentangeli somewhere there, just give him one line or something. So then, like at least we see him back in the day with Vito and all that,
Yeah, definitely,
something like
definitely,
that. Yeah.
because he just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's all of
Yeah.
a sudden in charge of the entire Corleone operation in New York. If you knew the original actor for Clemenza wasn't going to return, maybe you should have just shoved Pentangeli in there somewhere in the young Vito scenes. But maybe they
Yeah.
didn't want to make it seem too forced because sometimes the one of the issues with that is that you make the universe seem too small. Like it's just the
Oh yeah.
same.
Yeah.
It's like kind of what these other kind of films do, where they like the Star Wars films, Marvel films, where they keep bringing back old characters, and it's like there's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
10 people in the universe. That's what it kind of feels like. So I
True.
mean,
True.
so obviously you've made so many videos on The Godfather, and you'll be continuing to do so. Will we see any other? Do you have other interests? Other crime films, even non-crime films, apart from The Godfather?
Yeah, I've made like probably just one other like outside the Godfather, which is like the Goodfellas video. But at the moment, like the Godfather is like I'm more interested in the themes like in it. So like the concept of like power and all that. So yeah, there's a lot of movies that I want to get into, but it's like limit on time. So like I want to make sure like the video that I make that I'm actually really interested in and have the
Mm,
time to like actually like dive in, know everything about it, so like make a proper video. But yeah, definitely there's a lot that I want to get into.
cool. So where do your ideas then come from when you're making a video? Is it just you're watching the film and something pops in your head?
Yeah, that's mostly like where I get like most of the ideas, and then like from that one, as I do research, like two more questions pop up. So then
Mm.
those are two different ideas to explore, and so on. And yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I get what you mean because I mean, there's only three of them, and even at that, there's two that people are most interested in. But the films are so rich. There's so much to
exactly.
talk
Yeah,
about. I've made so many videos on the first two films, but even now, I'm thinking I've only kind of scratched the surface. There's still so much to talk about. It just shows you the greatness of those films. So, do you have like a favorite character?
probably yeah, Vito. Like just Vito. Yeah, Michael's great, but like Vito's the first character that I really enjoyed his like character, like looking into him and all that. Michael at the start, I didn't really like him. I found him like too like not like I don't know how to explain him. Like I don't know the right word for it, but yeah, Vito's like straight like he's in the embodiment of like power and all the like those type of things.
Mm. So who would you say was more effective then, as a kingpin, as a mob boss between the two, father and son?
Probably Vito, because he's like more sustainable. Like Michael wanted to like skyrocket straight away, but he didn't like his organization and all that wasn't that solid, so that he could like like achieve all his like ambitious like projects and like going to Cuba and all that, because he wasn't like a solidified leader. Vito built everything from the ground up, so he knew every single level, like and everything that goes into it. Michael just inherited the throne, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. So do you if the roles were reversed, so if it was Michael growing up, so let's say Michael was the immigrant child, and Vito was in Michael's place in Godfather Part Two, with Fredo betraying the family and Hyman Roth, all of that stuff. Can you see the outcomes being the same? Would they both mold into the kind of characters they ended up being in the film? Can you see Vito commit those cold, calculating moves like murdering his own, or obviously it wouldn't be his brother, it'd be his son.
It's a good question. I don't think so. Like, because their priorities like are different. I think like Michael, he was like he thought his way of protecting the family and all that was to make it the most powerful. Vito more understood like that he needed to like I don't know how to explain, but yeah, Vito was like more was more understanding, I guess. He already treated everyone like he didn't fully like not trust, but like he made his calculations so that if anyone could betray him, he would know, like he would be ready.
Mm.
So I think he would have more room to like maybe forgive Fredo. I think maybe, yeah.
So is that what you
So
think Vito would do then? So if Fredo did do what he did, and Vito just about avoided. I mean, you could make the argument he kind of did something similar in the first film, except obviously it wasn't something Fredo planned. He just kind of messed up when Vito was the another assassination attempt was placed on him. But let's say Fredo did what he did. What decision do you think Vito would have made?
I think it would just make him like sort of like a house arrest type thing. Like just he's confined to the compound, like he can't leave unless like supervised. And maybe
Mm.
then slowly he can like regain their trust. But like yeah. But he wouldn't like kill him like what Michael did. Definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not, because obviously family came first for Vito. The irony of
Exactly.
Michael is that he's done everything within his power to protect his family, but in doing so, he loses his family. The kid who
Exactly.
gets aborted, he loses Kay, he obviously the sister comes back, but them to drift apart in the second film, and obviously he loses Fredo by killing him, and it's one of the great ironies of the trilogy. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't see. I mean, it's an amazing discussion to have, but I don't see Vito killing Fredo at all. I mean, he maybe have would have kind of exiled him
Yeah.
out of the family. You can never come back to this household, or maybe kind of giving him some remote, kind of what they did in the first film anyway, some remote job. But I think ultimately, the situation would have never got to that stage under Vito, because it was the fact that Fredo got stepped over in the first place by Vito, and Michael became the Don. That kind of pushed Fredo to have this kind of lingering feeling that he needs to make something for himself. So I mean, Vito knows his children. He knows their nature. He would have sent
Yeah.
something. He would have um he would have, the way that he does things, everybody on his strings. He would have made it so that Fredo would have never been in a position to cause the family any harm. That's what I think. So in a weird way, the conversation is redundant, because Fredo would have never been able to do what he did under Vito, and he wouldn't even have had the motivation if Vito was still in charge. It's interesting. I don't know if you recall in the books, Fredo is actually quite different, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
he's supposedly considered the strongest of the three brothers, and it's the assassination attempt of Vito that actually changes him, makes him weak, and
Yeah.
because obviously it must have messed with his head. They say something like he doesn't speak to anybody for weeks after the assassination attempt, stays in his room, all that kind of stuff. But obviously in the film, it's just that he was weak to begin with, and in part two, they say he had pneumonia when he was a child and all that kind of stuff. So they changed his character quite a bit.
Yeah. Also, we don't get to see like much of Fredo before like the assassination attempt. So maybe he was like a bit stronger and like more outgoing and all that. But then after he was like traumatized or something. But yeah, they played on the fact that he was like not the smartest.
Yeah, it's very true. We didn't actually see much of him before, so maybe he was strong like in the books. Well, although that flashback scene in the part two at the end of the film, which is one of my favorite scenes in the entire trilogy, I think that does still kind of imply that Fredo's a bit of a weak one. Like he's not strong enough to kind of. Michael says he joins the Marines, and Fredo's like clearly in front of Sonny, who's livid. He's shaking his hand and everything, and it's like he's always out to please everybody. Like he's not standing up for himself and what
Yeah.
kind of like, what's your opinion on this? That kind of thing. It's like you never know what Fredo's thinking because he's not man enough, not strong enough to just come out with it and say what he wants. That's just the kind of vibe I got. So speaking of favorite scenes, what would be yours in the entire trilogy? What's the one standout scene for you?
Uh, okay. I mean, of course, there's a lot. It's either the opening scene when Vito's like talking to Bonacera and is like, "Be my friend" and all that.
Classic.
And then probably the meet. Just in part one, it's that one or the meeting of the Dons when they're all like talking and all that.
Right. Yeah. What about the second film?
The second film, Michael and Pentangeli, when he's like telling him you're still part of the Corleone family. It's like you have to act like him.
All right.
And
yeah.
all of like and all of like young Vito's scenes, young Vito with De Niro. Yeah.
Right. I see. Yeah. So what about the third film then? Is there any? Obviously, I'm guessing you're not as big of a fan as the third film.
Yeah, they've got a lot of good quotes, like but I don't think there's a good like maybe the final one, sorry, when his daughter gets shot. I guess that one's great acting, but it's mostly like great quotes from that. Yeah, I don't have a favorite scene from that one. It's just like they have a lot of great quotes in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you about the final scene because it's kind of like a build to a crescendo, and it's that scene on the stage. Because I don't like the girl's acting when she kind of stomps and then she's like dad and then douche like that because that was quite melodramatic. But Pacino's acting in the follow up when he's screaming and wailing, that was so real and hard hitting. I never watched that whenever I'm rewatching scenes. If I'm doing some research or something, I always skip that part because it's too raw. Pacino's acting, because he plays himself throughout the film. He's not the same Michael Corleone, but that scene at the end, he was amazing in that. I thought in that part. What about your videos of your own? Are there any that you've watched? You've made. Sorry, and you thought I really knocked it out of the park here. Do you have any favorite videos of your own?
No, not really. Like some that I enjoy making more than others, but I mean, maybe I would have to like rewatch them again. But yeah, there's none really stick out like as rewatching them. But some like when I like try something new, like and then it works sort of. Yes, to answer the question, not really. Yeah,
Cool.
I would have to rewatch them. Yeah.
No worries. So I mean, let's say for argument's sake, Francis Ford Coppola. Obviously, he's done a lot of work with the Godfather films recently. Obviously, he made Coda, Death of Michael Corleone. Apparently, this restoration took 3 years, so he's been working on and off on that. What if tomorrow he suddenly announced he's making a Godfather Part 4? Well, what would you think about that?
I mean, I'll be intrigued, like to see how he would do it, but also like kind of worried because like all these remakes and stuff, they end up actually ruining the original ones.
Yeah.
Even though like you don't have to watch it, but like you can't help it but like to go actually look into it.
Yeah, I mean, what if let's throw a little bit of a spanner into the mix. What if Coppola said he's too old to make it? He'll stay on as a creative consultant, but he'll get his daughter to make it. Sofia Coppola, who's obviously more of a director now.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one to be honest. Like The Godfather directing it, you can't just get anyone. Like I think the only other person that, or maybe the only two other people that could actually do it is Martin Scorsese and Sergio Leone. But I would love to see like a modern Scorsese version of The Godfather, like to see how he would, like his take on it.
Yeah, it would be interesting because he was actually offered the no, sorry, he wasn't offered. Coppola recommended him for The Godfather Part Two because originally he didn't want to direct it. So it would have been interesting to see that.
Yeah,
But maybe it wouldn't have worked because I mean we assume it would have worked because he's an amazing director and he's an amazing gangster movie director. But his films are kind of different. They're more raw, street level, all that kind of stuff. Whereas the Godfather films and Coppola, his movies are kind of operatic and majestic
yeah,
and the kind of sweeping epics. I mean, Scorsese has made those kind of films. Like The Age of Innocence was it was like a costume drama. I guess you could say The Irishman was a kind of epic, long, uh, melancholy kind of movie. Speaking of which, what did you think of that film?
The Irishman.
Hmm.
Um, it was good. Like I liked it. The first time I watched it, the I was really confused about like that De Niro was meant to be young at the start, and like the CGI did, like the facials, that it didn't work.
Hmm.
It made it confusing because then you thought that he was old then, but then later on the timeline's a bit weird. But as a movie, it's actually really good. Like it's really good. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I always ask because I've interviewed a few people in the past week, and I always ask them about The Irishman because The Irishman's a weird one. Mob movie fans, some people absolutely hate it, some people love it, some think it's just all right, but everybody seems in agreement that the aging CGI was a bit doesn't quite work, and they always bring up that one scene when De Niro is stomping on the grocer. I don't know if you remember,
Yeah.
but that scene was really really bad because I actually watched the film before it came out on Netflix. I managed to see it
Oh
in
wow.
some art house theater in the UK. And I said it in my review before the film even came out. I was like, watch, everybody is going to hate this scene because it's shocking. How does a
Yeah, it
film like
is.
that end up in the final cut? It was, it was terrible. I
It
can't
was terrible.
imagine.
Yeah.
I cannot envisage Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, Pesci, all these guys sitting watching the premiere of The Irishman, looking up and watching that scene and thinking, yeah, we did a great job with that scene. It's crazy. And for me, it's on Scorsese, not on De Niro, because he's a fit man. Even he's 70 plus, but like he lifted Zac Efron on his back for a promotional shoot just a couple of years back. So he's got. I mean, I'm not going to say he'll be able to do the beatdown like he did in Goodfellas with the Billy Bat scene, but I think he could have done it. He could have made it look better, but I mean, Scorsese chose a wide shot for some reason. You could have done it a close up. You could have done shaky cam. You could have even not
Yeah.
shown it at
Yeah.
all. Just shown the girl's reaction, his daughter Peggy. But I mean, I don't
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
It'll take some kind of interview from Scorsese to explain what the reasoning was because I'm just lost. Doesn't matter how many gangster movie video essays I can make. I can't explain that scene. That's one thing I can't do.
Yeah, and you're right. They could have like hit it somehow with editing or like different shots somehow like that. But like, yeah, you're right. He would have to explain that one. I'm not sure what he was thinking there.
Mm. So apart from The Godfather, then, what are your favorite crime films? What are the ones that you think are right up there with The Godfather, if any?
To be honest, I don't think there's any like at the Godfather level. There's of course like Goodfellas and like a few others, but the Godfather it stands out. Like it's in a league of its own. It's not like I don't even consider it just as a crime mafia. It's just like a brilliant movie.
Mm.
Like I don't compare with other mafia movies. I compare with like other great movies like I don't know, like Lord of the Rings or like one of these other epic huge movies.
Yeah, it's true because just to call it a gangster film doesn't do it justice because it's so much more. It tackles so many other
Exactly. Yeah.
themes, capitalism, family, all that kind of stuff. Um, I mean, I heard you mention Sergio Leone, who, funnily enough, is actually my favorite film director of all time. So
Mhm.
what did you make of his Once Upon a Time in America? Because that's often talked about. It's maybe not this on the same level, some people might think, but it's the same kind of film, the same style, that kind of sweeping, operatic kind of gangsters film. What did you make of that film?
Actually, I haven't even watched like the whole. I watched the like first half an hour, but then I got like bored. Then I forgot
Oh, is
about
it?
it. And yeah, I heard everyone like says it's great, but yeah, I just the first half an hour like I couldn't get past it. But I should really like go back and watch it
What happens in the
because it
first
seems
half an
like
hour? I'm just trying to think. Yeah, yeah,
it's like at
yeah,
the
yeah. Because I can see where you're coming from. Because obviously, I think it's just De Niro in old makeup, just kind of shuffling around.
Yeah, just
And
walking around the train station and all that. Like,
yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but I mean, it's an amazing film. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I love that film. I think it's absolutely a brilliant, and it obviously it's a very slow film. It takes a while to get into, but yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I think you're in for a treat. You know, it's an amazing film in my opinion. And who knows, maybe I don't I doubt it, but maybe you might think, hey, there is a film on par with The Godfather because some people think it's even better. I'm not sure myself.
uh,
I think The Godfather's a bit is just richer with the characters and all that kind of stuff. But
mm.
yeah, Once Upon a Time in America is definitely up there. What about Scorsese's films? What do you make of those and like Goodfellas and Casino, Mean Streets, and all those?
Yeah, those are brilliant. Like Goodfellas, Casino, all of them, they're really good. All of Scorsese's movies are like entertaining. Like he's one of those directors that like if he makes a movie, it's worth watching. It's always worth watching. Some of them are not as good as others, but like it's like countless classics.
So are there any? I mean, so what do you make then of the modern day state of gangster movies? Because I don't know if you watch films that come out these days, but you get films like John Travolta's Gotti or Danielle Beckett's Mob Town, or I mean, what else is there? I mean, it's just like, do you think the genre is finished? Because that's the vibe that many people get that they are just not making films like that anymore. No one seems to know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, they like the new ones come off as kind of like corny because they don't have that balance. They all just fall into like the cliches of like typical gangsters, like stealing money, like all the boring stuff. They don't put any like nuance or the theme. Like the Irishman was good because like it had levels. It was a gangster movie, whatever. But it wasn't just about like these street guys. It was about like it incorporated other things. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
these ones are just like cliche type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, The Irishman had all the themes of guilt and regret and introspection, all that kind of stuff. It's strange in the way because you don't really see a gangster film from the perspective of an older gangster who's looking back on his life. So it's a bit different in that regard. It's kind of like, I mean, just something I imagine in my head. Pacino sitting there at the end of The Godfather Part Three, just thinking about his life, and then you have The
Mm.
Irishman, which is a kind of recreation of a man in a wheelchair at the end of the film, just us showing us all of his life. So what about TV shows? I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Sopranos, for example.
Yeah, I've seen The Sopranos once. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So will we see maybe any videos on The Sopranos in the future?
Maybe. I think your channel does a brilliant job at The Sopranos. Like you're my go-to guy to like watch Sopranos content.
Oh, thank you very
Maybe,
much.
but because if I'm gonna go into like something, The Sopranos is like it's like there's so many episodes and that, and like if I'm gonna do something, I have to like really dive into it. So like
Mm,
some movies like I rather just or like shows and that just like leave like if they're not in my field like some things I just like to leave alone. Like I don't want to like be the one to talk about them and that because I don't think I can do them like justice and all that. The
right. Okay.
Godfather is
Yeah.
like for me it's like I'm really like invested is like in this film. I'm really interested and I think like I can bring something new. The Sopranos is like I don't think I have anything new to add. There's already a lot of people like such as yourself that like already do like a killer job at it.
Cool. Right. So yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on this already before, but if you were going to kind of branch out from The Godfather, what could we expect then from your channel? What movie do you think you'd like take deep dives into and just kind of go to town with it?
Um, well, I was thinking about this like a few weeks ago because I'm currently just doing this like just as a hobby, just to like just for fun and that. But
Mm,
because if I want to like go all in, I'm more interested like in the like themes like power, like so like for example maybe like the Gladiator, like talk about the characters in that and like a lot more movies. Like I would have to like do a lot more research to see like I don't think I would go to like pick a movie like another movie like The Godfather and go like deep into like the story and all that, but more into
right.
like the themes and all that sort of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So what kind of themes attract you then? Attract you when you're watching a film? What kind of resonates with you then?
It always depends, but like I like the rise and fall of like empires and like the characters rising to power, then how they fall and the mistakes on their way. Like
Mm,
Scarface is a good one. How like his
yeah.
greed makes him fall, and yeah, stuff like that.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, obviously I've noticed. Obviously I'm speaking to you, but obviously the voice in your videos is not your voice clearly. So is
Yeah,
there a particular reason for that? Did you use a text to speech software? Is it?
yeah. Okay, let me explain this. So okay, at the start, when I was starting out, I just wanted to do this for fun, and like for me, I tried it out. It was not good. Like I tried to narrate it, but then like it's a whole different skill, and I just wanted to do like the fun stuff. Like I wanted to make the visuals, write the script. The audio itself is like I'll do that later. Like I didn't really bother with it. I didn't know like the channel would like actually people would want to watch it and stuff. So just
Right.
making these videos just for myself, like just for was visually satisfying. Like you would look at it, like I would enjoy making the videos, and the audio part was like the boring parts. So then I was like,
Right. I
well,
see.
might as well just skip it, just put text to speech, whatever. Then
Cool.
yeah,
Okay, I get it. Yeah. So I mean, didn't you release a video a couple of days ago? Did it have your voice in it? Did it?
yeah. There's one also on. I made a second channel. It was just like testing it out to see, because like
Cool.
now I'm not gonna keep like doing text to speech. Like yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm thinking of going all in. So that was just like a little test to see.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you got a cool voice, you know. There's no reason to be like shy about it or anything like that if that's the case.
Yeah, no, it's more like to be honest, it's more like laziness. Maybe at
Right.
the start it was like it because if you want to like make a like if you're going to talk about the Godfather, you have to like you can't just talk like casually. You have to have like you have to know how to sort of like narrate like the videos in a proper way. I
Hmm.
can't just like make it like record it on my phone and just like have it all crackly and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if I go all in, I'll definitely like be narrating them from now on. It's probably easier because then like doesn't have to have like the spelling mistakes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It might be worth going into. So yeah, Mr. Culture Mafia, it was a pleasure speaking to you. I don't know if you have any questions for me or if there's anything you want to say in regards to your channel or anything. Otherwise, I think we can say thank you very much and goodbye. So is there anything you want to say?
No, just thank you. Like, you're like one of the first channels that I've seen to talk about like movies like this, and you do a really good job at it.
Oh, thank
And
you very much.
yeah, thank you for reaching out. Yeah, this was this was great.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's the same for me because, like, when I started doing this, nobody was talking about gangster films on YouTube. You had so many stuff to say, I don't know, Star Wars or Marvel movies, and but there was no real channel dedicated to gangster films or Godfather or anything like that or Sopranos. And now obviously we've got a few Sopranos channels, we've got a few people dabbling in this and dabbling in that, and your channel has come about as well, which is great. You know, there's so many because the thing with one of the reasons why I even started the channel in the first place was because I wanted to watch videos, people talking about the Godfather, all that, but nobody was doing it. So then I just kind of thought, oh, I'll do it myself. And obviously, it's great that there's other people now doing it. And I think we're seeing kind of some kind of surge of interest in crime cinema and kind of these adult, or I mean, adult movies is probably the wrong phrase to use, but you know, the kind of mature movies, you know,
Yeah, I
where
get you.
you,
Yeah,
where you can think about the characters and the motivations and the themes and all that kind of stuff. And we're kind of seeing that on YouTube now. There's an audience. The audience is clearly there. I mean, your channel has proven that. My channel has proven that. There's people that want to watch this stuff, and now these YouTubers like me and you, and we're available, and now we're in the game. So yeah, best of
yeah.
luck to you, mate.
To you too, man. Yeah.